The sun peeked through the curtains, gently rousing me from sleep. I rolled over, my arm instinctively stretching across the empty space next to me. Barbara must have gotten an early start at the office again. With a weary sigh, I pushed myself up and shuffled to the bathroom to start my morning routine. As the hot water rained down, I couldn't shake the growing sense of distance between us lately. Long nights at work, suddenly guarded phone conversations, it all pointed to her detaching. Had the spark faded after 10 years of marriage? I grimaced, rinsing away the thought. We'd been through rough patches before. This was just another hurdle, right? The day passed in a blur of typing and editing at the newspaper office. I prided myself on being an investigative journalist, revealing the truths that others tried to bury. If only I could investigate my own wife's distracted behavior and find the root cause. Home again. I hung my coat and wandered into the kitchen in search of something to eat. A hastily scribbled note on the fridge caught my eye. Working late again. Don't wait up. B. My appetite vanished as the words seemed to mock me. This was becoming too frequent, too suspicious. I slumped onto the couch, rubbing my temples as scenarios spun through my mind, each more troubling than the last. Grabbing my laptop, I tried to lose myself in writing, in creating new worlds to distract from the fractures in my own. But the words wouldn't come, blocked by the doubts crowding my thoughts. Was she? Could she possibly be having an affair? The idea felt like a punch to the gut. Barbara and I had been through so much together, survived so many storms. But her recent distance and absences gnawed at me. I had to know, one way or another. Dread clutched my chest as I formulated a plan to get to the bottom of her secrecy, to reveal the truth she seemed to be hiding from me. Tomorrow, I decided grimly. Tomorrow I'll get answers, no matter how painful they may be. Morning light filtered through the curtains, but I had barely slept. Rubbing my gritty eyes, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. I loved Barbara deeply, but I couldn't live in limbo any longer, tormented by doubts. Grabbing my keys, I headed straight for her office downtown. The receptionist eyed me curiously as I brushed past towards the corner office. Barbara looked up, startled, as I pushed through the door. "Andrew, what are you doing here?" "That's what I'd like to know from you," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Where have you been lately?" "Working late every night, constantly distracted." She swiftly gathered her composure. "You know how demanding this job is. I have important cases." "Don't give me that." I cut her off, my voice rising. "There's more to it, and you know it. The secrets, the lies, the distance." I searched her eyes, pleading. "Just tell me the truth, Barbara. Are you seeing someone else?" Her nostrils flared, jaw clenching. "How dare you accuse me of that? I've been nothing but faithful." "Then why does it feel like I barely know you anymore?" I cried, anguish cracking my words. "You're imagining things, Andrew. Work has just been extremely stressful." I shook my head slowly. "I don't believe you." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "Then that's your problem, not mine. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." She pointedly turned back to her computer. Stunned by her coldness, I could only stand there, struggling not to crumble. With a muttered, "Forget it," I turned and left, her dismissal like a slap across the face. The days blurred by in a haze. Barbara remained aloof, proving my accusations had only widened the chasm between us. At night, I tossed and turned, tortured by the not knowing. Maybe I had been wrong to accuse her so brashly without proof, but her vehement denial and anger seemed to confirm my darkest fears. I had to respect her privacy, but how could I go on living this way? My work became an escape, diving into stories of government corruption and corporate cover-ups. Investigating wrongdoing was a refuge from the turmoil eroding my own life. Then, one crisp autumn evening, during an investigation into a local politician, I was going to meet one of my sources who had some inside news to share with me. I was standing near a red light, waiting to cross the road, and I saw a car coming in at a high speed at me. Then I heard a loud noise. I don't remember anything after that. The next thing I knew was that when I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital, with Barbara sitting next to me. "Andrew." Her voice was small, shaken. "What happened?" I demanded, trying not to panic. She looked up, eyes brimming with tears. You were coming home from work. A drunk driver ran a red light and plowed right into you. A hollow ringing filled my ears as her words hit me like a sledgehammer. A reckless move while investigating a story, and my life had been shattered in an instant. Andrew, Barbara took my hand, squeezing it tightly. You're going to be okay, but you can't walk anymore. The accident, it paralyzed you from the waist down. My world collapsed around me as the weight of her words sank in. Tears streamed down my cheeks as anguished sobs racked my body. Barbara pulled me close, her own tears dampening my shoulder. I'd always taken such pride in being able to chase down every lead, to pursue the truth relentlessly. And now, that had all been ripped away, my life and dreams crumpling before me. In that hospital waiting room, clinging to Barbara desperately, the full, devastating reality came crashing down. Nothing would ever be the same again. As the shock gradually dimmed to a cold numbness, Barbara gently helped me into a wheelchair. She seemed different, I realized with a jolt. Softer, more tender and open than she'd been in ages. Had my debilitating injury somehow reminded her of what we meant to each other? Was this a chance to heal the fractures that had threatened to destroy our marriage? I studied her pained, apologetic expression as we made our way home in silence. So much still hung unspoken between us. But in that moment, I chose to push it all aside and simply feel grateful to be alive, resolved to face this daunting new reality with Barbara by my side. Over the next few weeks, she doted on me, arranging in-home care and meticulously overseeing my recovery. Our apartment was outfitted with accessibility ramps and equipment to accommodate my wheelchair. Yet, as her nurturing attention warmed me, I couldn't shake the persistent feeling that she was hiding something from me still. There was a flicker of guilt in her eyes whenever she looked at me now. One evening, as she fussed over my blankets, I caught her wrist. "Barbara." She froze, not meeting my gaze. "What is it?" I drew a steadying breath. "Please, no more lies between us. If we're going to get through this, we need total honesty." Her eyes slid shut, glistening with fresh tears. "You're right. I haven't been truthful, Andrew. Not for a long time now." Dread gripped my chest, but I willed myself to stay calm and hear her out. "Before your accident," she faltered, then forged onward. "I was having an affair with Matthew, one of the partners at the firm." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I recoiled, feeling the world crumbling once more underneath me. "Oh God, Andrew, I am so sorry," she whispered, reaching for my hand, but I snatched it away. Anger, hurt, and disgust swirled through me in dizzying waves. "How could you?" I rasped through the lump, constricting my throat. "After everything we've been through?" "I convinced myself I was unhappy," she said wretchedly, "that I deserved something more. But you're right, there's no excuse. I made a terrible mistake, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." As her remorseful confession spilled out, rage gave way to a soul-crushing sense of betrayal. "Who are you?" I uttered, staring aghast at the woman I thought I knew better than myself. My Barbara would have never been so selfish, so callous with my heart. "I'll understand if you never forgive me," she said, cupping my face in her hands imploringly. "But please, give me the chance to make things right again, to prove how much you mean to me. You're my world, Andrew, and I almost lost that forever." The memories of our once unshakable bond flickered through my mind like an old film reel. Vows whispered, dreams shared, hardships weathered side by side. Could I find it in myself to forgive her ultimate betrayal? To open my heart again, risking it being shattered anew? As I gazed at her with fresh eyes, I realized I had no choice. She was my life raft in this whirlpool of trauma and change. Without her, I may drown entirely. "It's going to take time," I said gruffly, causing her to exhale in tentative relief. "And you have to end things with him. Completely." "I already have," she said fervently. "The second I got that call about your accident, my eyes were opened. You're all that matters." I nodded, still trying to process the maelstrom of emotions warring within me. When she reached for me again, I allowed myself to be pulled into her embrace, her familiar warmth both comforting and disorienting after learning of her unfaithfulness. As her tears dampened my shoulder once more, I whispered, "We'll get through this, together." Because despite the devastation, despite the broken trust, I realized I simply couldn't let go of the love that still bound me to this woman, for better or worse. But my life had been irrevocably altered, in more ways than one. And going forward, nothing would ever be certain again. In the weeks that followed, Matthew began harassing Barbara incessantly. Repeated calls and texts, showing up unannounced at her office. His refusal to let go stirred up waves of fear and guilt within her. "Please, you have to make him stop," she begged me one evening, tears streaking her cheeks. "I'm so afraid of what he might do." I pulled her close, my protective instincts flaring despite the hurt she'd caused. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." Clenching my jaw, I got to work, tapping into my investigative resources and contacts around the city. It didn't take long to unearth a sordid history on Matthew Hendricks. Accusations of sexual misconduct during his college days quickly swept under the rug. Allegedly assaulting a female classmate at a frat party, but the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. My blood boiled as I read the disturbing reports. This was the kind of scumbag Barbara had risked throwing away our marriage for. I arranged a meeting with Matthew at a quiet bar downtown, my recorder app primed and ready. When he arrived, I wasted no time cutting to the chase. "I know what you did at Stanford, you sick bastard," I said, sliding the incriminating documents across the table. "How many other women did you terrorize before Barbara?" Matthew's face drained of color as he frantically tried to gather the papers. "Where did you get these?" he hissed. "You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" I said with a deadly calm. "I'm a journalist, Matthew. It's my job to expose the truth, no matter how deeply it's buried." His panicked eyes finally met mine, and he seemed to realize I wasn't bluffing. A muscle ticked in his jaw as he visibly weighed his options. "What do you want?" he asked at last through gritted teeth. "It's simple," I said, leaning forward. "You're going to leave Barbara alone. Permanently. No more calls, no more unannounced visits. She wants nothing to do with you." "Or what?" he challenged, putting on a brave face. "You'll run a little story about me? I'm not scared of you, cripple." White-hot rage lanced through me at his slur, but I kept my cool veneer. "No, I'll make sure the entire city knows you're a predator who preys on vulnerable women. Maybe the police will finally take a good hard look at that case from Stanford, see what evidence they can dig up." Matthew paled further as I laid it all out, knowing his privileged career would be ruined, his life and reputation in tatters. "You wouldn't," he said hoarsely, but the fear flickering in his eyes said he knew I would without hesitation. "Try me," I said with finality. "Barbara made a mistake, but she's done with you. If you know what's good for you, you'll be too." His posturing finally crumbled as he seemed to accept defeat. "Fine, you win," he spat. "I'll leave her alone. I'll leave you both alone. Just don't come after me." "As long as you hold up your end of the deal," I said with narrowed eyes. "Because if you don't, the gloves come off. Are we clear?" He gave a terse nod, then turned and stalked out, shoulders slumped in humiliation. I leaned back in my seat, adrenaline still pulsing as I caught my breath. It was a risky move, trying to take down such a powerful man, but I couldn't allow that slimeball to keep terrorizing Barbara. As if sensing the shift in energy, my burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have stuck your nose where it didn't belong." I frowned, instantly on guard. Matthew's last petulant gasps of retaliation? I quickly typed back, "I don't take threats lightly. Time to move on." A few tense minutes passed, then a response, "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. You'll see." My uneasy confusion quickly morphed to dread as another text fired in. "You want to play hardball? Let's play. Your precious wife's dirty secrets are about to get aired out for the whole world to see." I felt like I'd been plunged into ice water as the implications sank in. Someone else knew about Barbara's affair, and they were going to make sure it went public in a blaze of brutal humiliation. I tried to brace myself, but nothing could have prepared me for the media firestorm that erupted in the aftermath. Sordid details splashed across front pages, Barbara's name and face plastered under lurid headlines. Videos even surfaced of her meetings with Matthew, recorded by private investigators. The public shaming was relentless. Our private trauma turned into a gaudy spectacle. I quickly traced the leak back to Matthew's jilted lover, Ashley Vance, a wealthy socialite with an axe to grind. Through it all, Barbara was despondent and ashen, devastated by her errors now being dissected in the court of public opinion. Even my threats of retaliation couldn't stem the tidal wave. In a bid to regain control of the narrative, I made the controversial decision to publish Matthew's transgressions from Stanford as well, blowing the lid off his abusive history. He was fired in disgrace as outrage swirled. Still, even as Matthew slunk off in ignominy, the damage to Barbara's reputation and career was done. She became a pariah, forced to resign amid the unrelenting scrutiny and castigation. In those dark days, as the endless think pieces and hot takes raged on, I finally understood the full, brutal gravity of betrayal. Not just Barbara's unfaithfulness, but the way our private crucible had been twisted into lurid entertainment, our pain exploited and commercialized for public consumption. Try as I might, I couldn't regain my equilibrium, struggling to find my way back to the man I'd been before the earth-shattering revelation of her affair. In time, the furor died down and the masses moved on to fresh controversy, but the scars never fully healed over. Though Barbara and I attempted to rebuild on the ashes of what remained, an inextricable fissure had been carved between us. "I can't do this anymore," I said dully one night as she served me dinner, the routines of our fractured domesticity carrying on hollowly. She froze, reading the resignation in my eyes. "You're divorcing me." It wasn't a question, just a hoarse statement of fact. I gave a somber nod. After everything, I wanted to make it work. My voice cracked with remorse. "But I can't trust you in the same way anymore, Barbara. What we had, it's broken irreparably." Tears streaked her cheeks, but she didn't argue, couldn't protest. We both knew it was over. "I understand," she whispered, crossing to take my hands. "And you don't have to worry about assets or money or anything. I'll walk away with nothing. It's the least I can do after the hell I've put you through." I shook my head faintly, squeezing her hands in what felt like a lifetime's goodbye. "Just be happy, Barbara. That's all I want for you now." Definitely, one reason behind divorce was Barbara's betrayal, but deep down, I knew Barbara deserves better than a broken, handicapped body. I don't want her to be trapped, helping me for the rest of her life. She had half of her life ahead to live. I wanted her to be free and find someone like her, a normal man who could walk with her and fulfill all of her wishes. I was strong enough to get through my physical disability alone. We held each other one last time, clinging to the tattered remnants of the profound love that once seemed indestructible. Life marched relentlessly onward in the aftermath, forcing me to slowly adjust to my new normal in a broken body and a broken life. I filed the divorce papers, and true to her word, Barbara walked away with no claims to our assets. We agreed to remain friends. The depth of our history couldn't be erased, even if the passion was extinguished. With my newfound solitude, I channeled my energies into my writing and into regaining my independence in the wake of trauma, both physical and emotional. It was an arduous journey of daily challenges, of having to find new strength and perseverance. Matthew eventually resurfaced, though a husk of his former confident self thanks to my exposure. I felt a pang of bitterness remembering how he'd helped set the dominoes toppling on my world, but also a muted sense of justice. As for Barbara, she eventually relocated to start anew. Our paths crossed from time to time, and any lingering acrimony softened into melancholy nostalgia for the sheer depths we had once loved. In many ways, I was lucky to still be standing after the devastation, even confined to a chair. I'd been to the brink and back, forging an uneasy truce with the smoldering wreckage of my former life. Barbara and I remained cordial from a distance, bonded by our shared history, yet ultimately following separate paths. It wasn't the life I'd envisioned, but it was mine to rebuild from the ruins. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen. and I will see you there.